The endless darkness of space glimmered with cold stars when the cargo ship Ardent Star crossed through an asteroid belt near the edge of the Volari system. Inside the ship, a human engineer named Ethan Vale was checking the reactor readings. He was tired, cold, and dreaming of warm food and a quiet night. But fate had other plans. Without warning, a bright flash filled the front window. A shard of ancient debris left from an old alien war slammed into the hull. The ship screamed as alarms blared. Sparks flew from the control panels. Ethan grabbed the handle, shouting, "System override! Come on, hold together." But the Ardent Star didn't hold. The navigation computer failed and the engines shut down. The ship spun like a broken toy, dropping into the gravity pull of a nearby frozen planet. Ethan barely had time to reach the escape pod. He jumped in, sealed the hatch, and pulled the eject lever. The pod shot away from the dying ship, spinning through fire and ice. He watched as the Ardent Star exploded in the upper atmosphere. Then everything went dark. When Ethan opened his eyes, the world was white and silent. The pod had landed hard, half buried in snow. His breath came out in short white clouds. The temperature gauge blinked a red warning, 63 degrees 60. He coughed, rubbed his arms, and forced himself to move. "Okay, Vale," he muttered to himself. "You're alive. That's a start." He checked his supplies, some emergency rations, a heat pack, a broken beacon, and a small plasma torch. No tent, no proper shelter. The storm outside howled like a living creature. He looked at the cracked display screen and saw readings of faint energy signals coming from the north, about 2 kilometers away. "If there's power, there's shelter," he said, and started walking. The snow reached his knees and the wind tore at his face. Every step was slow and heavy. The sky was gray and endless. His suit heater kept him alive but weak. Time passed, minutes, maybe hours. He could no longer feel his hands. Then through the blizzard he saw a dark shape. A tall, half-buried structure like a tower covered in ice. He stumbled toward it and brushed away the snow from the entrance. It was an old alien outpost with strange curved walls made of shining black metal. The door had symbols carved on it, glowing faint blue. Ethan touched the panel and it flickered weakly. Somehow it still had a little power. He pushed and the door opened just enough for him to squeeze inside. The wind scream faded as it closed behind him. Inside was silent, dark, and cold. He turned on his torchlight. The hall was made of smooth alien metal. Old equipment was scattered everywhere. Broken screens, storage boxes, strange crystal devices. It looked like nobody had been here for years. He kept walking deeper until he heard a sound, a faint breathing followed by a weak cough. Ethan froze. "Hello?" he called. No answer. He followed the sound until he reached a small chamber lit by a flickering blue lamp. On the floor lay a figure wrapped in torn silver fabric. Blue skin, silver eyes, long white hair. It was not human. It was a woman, clearly alien, but with features close enough to human that Ethan could read pain and exhaustion on her face. She was breathing shallowly, trembling. "Hey," he whispered softly, kneeling beside her. "You alive?" The alien woman's eyes opened slowly. Her pupils glowed faintly. When she saw his face, she tried to push herself away. "Human," she hissed, voice shaking but proud. "Do not touch me." "Fine," Ethan said, holding up his hands. "But if you stay on this floor, you'll freeze." "I'm not your enemy." She didn't answer, only shivered harder. Her body temperature was dropping fast. Ethan looked around and saw no other heat sources. His heat pack could only keep one person alive for a few hours. He placed it under her hand anyway. "What are you doing?" she whispered weakly. "Saving your life. You're welcome," he said simply. The alien blinked at him, confused. "Why?" "Because you're breathing." "That's enough reason." The woman tried to sit up. "My name is Torella," she said after a pause, her voice slow. "I am Volari. Or I was. They exiled me here." Ethan frowned. "Exiled? You mean they sent you to this ice rock?" "Yes, for disobedience." Her eyes closed again. "They left me to die." Ethan looked at her torn uniform and the strange bracelet on her wrist marked with alien symbols. She looked royal somehow, or maybe a soldier. Either way, she didn't deserve to die alone. He checked the room again, found a broken bed platform with some soft fabric, and dragged it near a wall. "I'll get a fire going," he muttered, trying to use his torch to melt some ice and reach the generator under the floor. But the power core was long dead. The air grew colder. Frost started forming on his helmet visor. His fingers were turning stiff. Torella watched him struggle. Your tools will not save us. This world eats heat. He sighed and dropped to his knees. Then what do you suggest? For a moment she said nothing. Then through chattering teeth she gave a small growl. Your body produces heat. So does mine. Volari body energy is high. We can survive if we share it. Ethan blinked. You mean, yes, she snapped, her voice weak but sharp. Shut up, human. We're freezing. Get in my bed now. Ethan blinked twice, unsure if he heard that right. But the tone in her voice was clear. It wasn't a request. It was an order from someone used to command. Right, he said awkwardly, removing his jacket. Not the weirdest order I've ever followed. He lay down beside her carefully, wrapping the torn silver blanket around them. The warmth from her skin was strange, like touching smooth glass that slowly turned warm from inside. She trembled less. For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind howled outside and the room stayed cold but bearable. Hours passed. The storm outside roared like thunder. Inside there was only breathing. Ethan stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about his crashed ship, the endless snow, and this strange alien woman beside him. Finally, Torella spoke softly. You are not like the others. Others? Ethan asked. Humans. I have seen them in our wars, loud, hungry for glory. You are quiet, Ethan chuckled. I'm an engineer. We like machines more than fighting. You fix things, she said as if testing the word. My people destroy things. Maybe that's why we met, he said, smiling slightly. You break, I fix. Torella looked at him, puzzled by the humor, but something in her eyes softened. Strange human, she whispered. Even when dying, you make jokes. It's how we survive, he replied. She closed her eyes again and her breathing slowed. Ethan felt the warmth spreading more evenly. His own body stopped shaking. He looked at her sleeping face. She looked peaceful now, not like an enemy. Maybe just someone lost and tired. He wondered what kind of people would exile one of their own to die in a place like this. When the storm finally ended, the silence outside was heavy. Ethan carefully got up and walked to the door. The snow had stopped falling, but everything was covered in thick ice. The small energy reader on his wrist showed the same faint signals from the outpost, maybe other rooms still holding power. He turned back toward the sleeping Torella. She was awake now, watching him. You are leaving? Just to check for supplies. I'll be back, he said. Don't worry, I'm not stupid enough to run away into that storm again. She gave a faint smile. Good, if you die, I will freeze again. Nice to know someone cares, Ethan joked lightly. And she actually let out a small, quiet laugh, the first one since he met her. Ethan searched the rest of the outpost. He found a few working energy cells, some strange food rations that might still be safe, and a half-broken power console. Using parts from his own gear, he connected the cells and restored light to one section of the base. When he returned to Torella, she was sitting up looking at the ceiling lights with awe. You repaired this place? She asked. Part of it, he said. We've got power for a few hours at least. She studied him, her silver eyes glowing softly. You are resourceful, human. Engineer, remember? He said with a grin. Fixing things is what I do. For the first time, she looked almost grateful. Then perhaps, together we may survive this. Yeah, Ethan nodded, sitting beside her. Together. The night grew quiet. The small lights hummed. Outside, the frozen world stretched forever, cold and endless. But inside that ruined alien outpost, two strangers, one human, one Volari, shared the first fragile warmth of trust. Neither knew that their meeting would soon change not just their lives, but the history of both their species. The sun never truly rose on the frozen planet. Instead, a pale blue glow lit the horizon, reflecting off the endless fields of ice and snow. Inside the half-repaired alien outpost, Ethan Vale was busy at work. His hands moved quickly, assembling small energy converters, connecting wires, and testing the strange alien machinery that he barely understood. Every hum of restored power was a small victory against the deadly cold outside. Torella watched him quietly, seated on the makeshift bed. She had spent most of the night observing him, noting his calm focus, his resourcefulness, and the strange human habit of talking to himself. You are persistent, she said finally, her voice soft. Most humans would have died long before now. Ethan glanced up, wiping sweat and frost from his forehead. Persistence is survival, he said. If you want to stay alive, you keep going. That's all there is to it. Tarella's silver eyes glimmered with curiosity. And yet you are weak to the cold. Your species cannot endure this world alone. True, Ethan admitted. Which is why I stick close to intelligent aliens with body heat. He gave a small grin. She didn't smile back, but he felt a spark of amusement cross her face. The tension from the first night had eased slightly, replaced by cautious trust. Over the next few days, the two survivors established a routine. Ethan scavenged the outpost for supplies, tested old power cells, and studied the alien devices. He discovered small Volari heat crystals that stored energy, tiny spheres glowing faintly with warmth. Alone, they would not last long, but in combination, with his makeshift human heating devices, they created a small zone of warmth in the central chamber. Tarella taught him how to manipulate the crystals. Her knowledge of Volari technology was deep, precise, and unlike any human understanding. She demonstrated the process with exact movements and whispered instructions. Ethan listened carefully, adjusting the crystals in patterns she suggested. Heat began to radiate more efficiently, melting ice around the edges of the chamber and providing the first stable environment they had since the crash. You learn quickly, Tarella said one evening, as the two of them watched the crystals glow. Most Volari would fail in this task. Ethan shrugged, tired but satisfied. I fix what's broken. That's what engineers do. Tarella paused, studying him. Humans are different from what I expected. We Volari believe your kind is reckless, violent, and fragile. But you are careful. You think before acting. He laughed softly. Careful is one way to survive. Reckless is how you get frozen to death in 10 seconds. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. Perhaps we are learning from one another. One evening, as the wind howled outside like a chorus of angry spirits, Tarella brought up the subject she had been avoiding. Ethan, why did you save me? She asked quietly. Her voice had lost its sharp edge, replaced by genuine curiosity. He paused, looking into her silver eyes. Because it was the right thing to do. You're alive and I can help. That's reason enough. Tarella shook her head slowly. Your kind does not often act without expectation of reward. Even my exile. I would have expected humans to leave me to die. Ethan's hands froze mid-motion, adjusting the energy cells. I'm not like most humans, he said gently. Some of us try to survive by helping others. That's all there is to it. She seemed to ponder this for a long time. Perhaps this is why your species thrives. Even when weak, you find strength in others. He nodded, feeling a strange warmth not from the crystals but from her words. For the first time since the crash, he sensed a bond forming. Delicate, fragile, but real. Survival had forced them together, but respect and trust were slowly growing between human and Volari. The days passed. Ethan improved the outpost, setting up barriers against the constant blizzards and making the central chamber livable. He used a combination of alien and human technology. He repaired broken ventilation systems, rerouted energy, through the heat crystals, and even managed to rig a small water system by melting ice with the geothermal energy from the crystals. Tarella watched him work, her admiration growing silently. You are inventive, she said one afternoon. I have seen Volari engineers with decades of training, and they would not have thought to combine these systems as you have. Ethan shrugged, smudging a bit of soot on his cheek. Improvisation, human specialty. He smiled faintly. We make do with what we have. Her silver eyes glimmered. Perhaps humans are not as primitive as I believed. Perhaps we judged too quickly. Ethan leaned back against a console, tired but content. Judgment is easy, surviving is hard, and surviving is all that matters here. It was during one of these quiet moments that Tarella finally confided in him about her exile. I was a commander, she admitted, her voice tight. I defied the Council of Volari. They sent me here to die. Alone, unprotected. My family, my friends, they all turned away. Ethan listened carefully, feeling the weight of her words. He had faced storms, crashes, and isolation, but he had never been cast out by his own people in this way. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "No one deserves that." Tarella's eyes glimmered with a mix of sadness and anger. "It is the way of my people. Strength is valued above all else. Compassion is weakness. You have shown me otherwise, human." He nodded, unsure what to say. Words felt small compared to her experience. "Then maybe we can survive together," he offered. She considered this, then nodded slowly. "Yes, together we will endure." But survival was not easy. One morning, Ethan found the temperature in the outpost dropping rapidly. The heat crystals were losing energy faster than expected. The storm outside had worsened overnight, battering the outpost with fierce winds and jagged ice. The walls trembled with the force of the cold. Tarella shivered violently. Ethan rushed to her side. "We need more heat," he said. "We can combine our energy again, just like the first night." Tarella's eyes widened. "Do you mean—" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "We share body heat. No other choice." She hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. Human, get closer." Her voice was soft, almost embarrassed, but urgent. They lay together again, the warmth from each body slowly fighting the cold. The crystals glowed faintly as Ethan carefully adjusted them around the edges. Time seemed to stretch. Outside, the storm raged, but inside they survived. For the first time, neither feared immediate death. As they lay there, Tarella spoke quietly, almost to herself. "You are different from the humans I knew. Perhaps there is hope for your species." Ethan smiled faintly. "Hope is what keeps us alive." Over the next week, Ethan taught Tarella some human skills, basic engineering adjustments, how to improvise repairs, and even small tricks for surviving extreme cold. In return, Tarella shared her knowledge of Volari technology, teaching him about the crystal energy, the alien data systems, and how to stabilize the power grid in the outpost. Slowly, the ruined base became a functional shelter. "You have changed this place," Tarella said one evening as she watched Ethan work. "It is no longer dead. Life remains because of you." "I just fixed it," Ethan said, smiling. "Life comes from people, not walls." Her silver eyes softened. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps life is stronger than even death." Their trust grew deeper. They argued occasionally about which crystals to use, how to prioritize repairs, or how to ration the limited food. But the arguments were small, compared to the larger problem of survival. They shared stories about their worlds. Ethan spoke of Earth, cities, rivers, and green forests. Tarella spoke of Volari worlds, floating cities, and the rigid hierarchy that had exiled her. Their voices filled the outpost with warmth stronger than any crystal or heater could provide. One evening, as a blizzard painted the walls with frost, Tarella turned to him. "Ethan, if the storm never ends, if no one comes, I would survive. With you." Ethan looked at her, startled. "You trust me?" "Yes," she said simply. "I do. Perhaps, for the first time, I have someone who will not betray me." His chest warmed with a sense of pride and responsibility. "Then we survive, together, no matter what." Outside, the frozen world was merciless, but inside the outpost, two strangers, human and Volari, had forged a fragile alliance. The storm raged, the snow fell, and the cold threatened, but they were no longer alone. They had each other. The days passed, blending together in a routine of survival, repair, and learning. They laughed quietly when mishaps happened, and argued with sharp words when tensions rose, but always came back together when the night grew cold and dark. Each day, Ethan admired Tarella's intelligence and courage, while she admired his ingenuity and compassion. For the first time, they both realized that survival was not just about avoiding death. It was about forming bonds that made life worth living. And perhaps they thought silently, humanity and Valari were not so different after all.